The bell had barely finished ringing when the principal made his announcement. "Ana Maria Morales," he said, voice sharp enough to cut paper. "Office, now." Heads turned in the senior English classroom. Ana kept her gaze on the chipped edge of her desk, fingers laced so tight her knuckles blanched. Her uniform blazer was secondhand, the school crest half frayed, but it was clean. The only thing that wasn't was the shame crawling up her throat. "Go on, sweetheart," Miss Clara Bennett murmured at the back of the room. "Take your bag." Ana nodded, shouldered the faded backpack, and walked the long aisle as whispers rose on both sides like weeds through concrete. A boy near the window snickered, loud enough to be heard. Clara shot him a look that made the sound die in his mouth. Outside, the corridor smelled like floor wax and rain. Principal Whitaker was waiting by his door, tie too tight, smile too bright. He ushered her inside, closed the blinds with 2 crisp pulls, and sat behind his desk, every movement rehearsed. "We have rules here," he began. "Standards." "Yes, sir." "Your tuition balance is delinquent." He tapped a paper. "We have given you extensions. We cannot give you charity." "It's not charity," Ana said, keeping her voice small. "It's financial aid. Your mother signed an agreement. She is 6 months behind." He placed a pink slip on the desk like a verdict. "You are hereby expelled, effective immediately." Her breath stopped. "But graduation is in 3 weeks. My scholarship will be rescinded without good standing," he said smoothly. "Actions have consequences. Please." The word escaped before she could swallow it. "Please, sir. My mom is working doubles. I'll pay. I won't repeat myself." He stood. "Turn in your ID, your locker key, and that blazer. It belongs to the school." Ana couldn't move. The room tilted. Plaque walls, polished diplomas, a framed photo of Whitaker shaking hands with a councilman at a ribbon cutting. She unclipped her ID, set the key down, and reached for the blazer button. Her hands shook so badly she missed twice. "Keep the blazer on," Clara said from the doorway, voice calm but edged with steel. She had slipped in silently, the way good people do when they're about to do something dangerous. Whitaker bristled. "Ms. Bennett, this is an administrative matter." "Then administrate without humiliating a student." Clara stepped to Ana's side, set a steadying palm between her shoulder blades. To Ana, she said softly, "You're going to breathe for me, okay?" Ana nodded. It didn't unlock her lungs, but it put a small weight against her back that kept her from falling. Whitaker's smile flattened. "Your concern is noted. So is your overstepping. Then note this." Clara faced him squarely. "You can't expel a student midterm for unpaid fees without a due process hearing. Page 37 of your own handbook." His jaw flexed. "The board will support my decision." "Only if you're hiding something in the budget," Clara said evenly. "Are you?" The question hung like a live wire. Whitaker's gaze flicked to the blinds, to the door, back to Ana. "Ms. Morales," he said tightly, "you are to vacate the premises." "I'll escort her," Clara said, "and I'll be advising her mother to request an audit." For a beat, none of them moved. Rain ticked against the window. Finally, Whitaker sat, composing his features into something like patience. "You have 5 minutes." In the hall, Ana sagged against the lockers, tears pushing against her eyes the way tide presses against a seawall. "He can do this," she whispered. "He always gets what he wants." "Not always," Clara said. "Come on." They walked to the tiny staff kitchen. Clara poured water, pressed the plastic cup into Ana's hands. "Your mom, can I call her?" "She's at work." Ana's voice trembled. "If she leaves, she'll get fired." "An advocate, then. Anyone I can contact who'll stand up for you?" "A pastor. A social worker, Ana's fingers tightened around the cup. There was a card tucked inside the lining of her backpack, stitched there years ago by calloused fingers, and a needle pulled through denim at a kitchen table. "If you're ever in trouble, Mia, call this number." Her mother had said it with a softness that told Ana not to ask questions she wasn't ready to hear answers to. She slid the backpack open with a small, decisive motion, found the hidden seam, pulled the card free. A name she'd never said aloud stared back at her in clean black ink. Domenico Valente, a Chicago area code. Nothing else. Clara watched her carefully. "Who is that?" "I don't know." The truth sat strange in her mouth. But my mom told me if everything ever fell apart. Then we try, Clara said. She reached for the staff phone, then paused. This is your choice, Anna. Do you want me to call? Anna stared at the numbers until they blurred. She thought of her mother's split shifts, the envelope of cash that never seemed full enough, the way Whitaker had looked at her like a line item. She nodded. Clara dialed. The line clicked, rang twice. A man answered. Yes. Clara hadn't decided how to open. She decided on simple. My name is Clara Bennett. I'm a teacher at Lakeview Preparatory. I'm with a student named Ana Maria Morales. Her mother... The voice sharpened, cutting cleanly through the space between them. Is Carmen's daughter with you? Clara blinked. Yes. And is she safe? Clara looked at Anna, wet-eyed, shaking, clutching a cup in both hands like a prayer. Not yet. She was just expelled for unpaid fees. Silence. Then, put her on. Anna took the receiver with hands that felt like someone else's. Hello? The voice changed. Softer, somehow older. Ana Maria, this is Nico. Your mother told you about me when you were little. She never said who you were. She didn't need to. The man exhaled, and even the sound of it was steady. Do you want help? Anna closed her eyes. She was not used to being asked what she wanted. Yes. Stay where you are, he said. Do not leave the school with anyone but Ms. Bennett. I'll be there in the morning. The morning? Panic flared. They won't let me in. They will, he said. Have Ms. Bennett keep you with her. If anyone tries to move you, call this number again. What are you going to do? Fix what should never have broken. A beat. Tell Ms. Bennett, thank you. The line went dead. Clara took the receiver back, stared at it as if it might explain what had just happened. Who was that? Anna slid the card into Clara's palm. He said to thank you. And he's coming tomorrow. Who is he? Clara repeated, though she had the uneasy feeling they were about to find out whether they wanted to or not. They spent the last period in Clara's classroom. Clara typed 3 emails, one to Anna's mother, one to a legal aid clinic, one to a friend at the Tribune who owed her a favor. Outside, word of the expulsion spread like ink in water. Faces passed the window, curious, smug, sympathetic. Whitaker didn't reappear, but his secretary did, twice, to ask what room Ms. Bennett intended to use after school hours. Clara smiled politely and closed the door. At dismissal, she walked Anna to the bus stop under a sky that had given up pretending it wouldn't pour again. Do you want me to come with you? Clara asked. I'm okay, Anna lied. I'll call you when I get home. Clara squeezed her shoulder. You did nothing wrong. Anna managed a small smile and climbed onto the bus. She didn't see Whitaker watching from the office window. She didn't see him make a call. That night, Chicago's weather broke open and dumped half the lake onto the streets. Carmen Morales arrived at the apartment past midnight, drenched and exhausted, and held her daughter while Anna cried into her shoulder without words. Carmen didn't ask about the card. She didn't have to. She kissed Anna's hair and whispered, It's going to be okay, the way mothers do when they don't know how, but intend to make it true. Morning came too bright, too fast. The rain had burned itself out, leaving the sky a hard, endless blue. At 8:03 a.m., the principal stepped outside to greet the day's visiting donor, some tech entrepreneur with a check and a photographer, and heard it before he saw it. A far-off chop that grew louder, heavier, like a heartbeat turning into a drum, heads tilted. Teachers stepped out of doorways. Students in polo shirts and plaid skirts shaded their eyes. The helicopter came in low over the soccer field, glass flashing, rotors carving the air. It wasn't a news chopper or a police bird. This one was sleek, matte black, unmarked. It settled onto the grass with a wind that flattened the shrubs and sent papers cartwheeling across the courtyard. The side door slid open. A man in a black shirt and darker gaze stepped down as if the earth belonged to him when he chose to touch it. 2 others followed, not close but close enough. He didn't glance at the stunned faces, the buzzing phones. He was already walking toward the front doors like a weather system entering a room. Whitaker swallowed, straightened his tie, and pasted on a smile that showed just a little too much gum. Can I help you? He called over the dying roar. The man didn't slow. You already did, he said, voice low and even. Yesterday. He stopped at the bottom of the steps and looked past Whitaker into the lobby until he found what he wanted. A girl in an ill-fitting blazer clutching a backpack to her chest, and a young teacher standing like a lighthouse at her side. His mouth softened. Not much, but enough to change the air around him. "Anna Maria," he said, as if he'd been practicing her name for years. "I'm here." He climbed the front steps as if the weight of the world couldn't touch him. The black shirt clung to his shoulders, a gold chain glinting at his collarbone. The secretary behind the desk forgot how to breathe. Even the security guard by the door took a half-step back. The man didn't raise his voice. "Which one of you is Principal Whitaker?" Whitaker straightened, finding his authority like a coat he wasn't sure still fit. "I am, and you are?" "Domenico Valente." He extended no hand. "Carmen Morales once worked for my family. Her daughter studied here, until yesterday." Whitaker forced a laugh that came out wrong. "Ah, you're a relative?" "No," Valente said. "But I was raised to repay debts." His eyes shifted to Anna. "And I owe her mother more than money." The hall had filled, teachers pretending to check schedules, students peering from classroom doors. Whitaker's smile cracked at the edges. "I'm afraid this is a private matter. If you'll make an appointment," Valente stepped closer. "You humiliated a child in front of her peers over a balance that the board will find mysteriously corrected by noon. What you owe now is an apology." The words weren't shouted, yet they carried. The hush spread until only the tick of the clock broke it. Whitaker's mouth opened, closed. "I don't think you understand how schools—" Valente leaned forward just enough for Whitaker to see what kind of man stood in front of him. Still, but coiled. Quiet but decisive. "You're right. I don't understand schools. I understand respect. Teach it." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Whitaker's gaze flicked toward Anna. "Miss Morales, I may have acted hastily yesterday. It's possible we can reconsider the terms of your enrollment." Anna blinked. "Sir?" "Your place is restored," he said quickly. "Pending board approval, of course." Clara Bennett stepped forward before Anna could speak. "That won't be necessary. I'll document the reinstatement in writing, and perhaps you'll copy the parent notification to Mr. Valente, since he seems to care about transparency." Whitaker nodded too fast. "Of course." Valente's expression didn't change. "Good." He turned slightly toward Anna. "You'll finish your year." Yes, sir," she stammered. "Mr. Valente," Clara started, unsure how to measure gratitude against alarm. He looked at her then, and the impact of that gaze stole her breath for a second. "You're her teacher?" "I am." "Then you did the right thing." His tone softened barely a degree. "Thank you." And just like that, he turned and walked out, the crowd parting around him as though the air itself made way. The helicopter lifted again 5 minutes later, scattering papers across the courtyard and leaving the school buzzing like a kicked hive. By lunch, the story had mutated through 50 mouths. Some said he was a government official, others a movie producer. Only Clara and Anna knew the truth, and neither spoke of it. When classes ended, Anna found a note folded in her locker, a single line in unfamiliar handwriting. "Come by the cafe across from the park at 4. Bring your teacher. DV." She showed it to Clara. "Do we go?" Clara looked at the ink, the steadiness of the hand, and the way Anna's hope trembled behind the question. "We go," she said. The cafe smelled of roasted beans and rain. Domenico Valente was already there, sitting by the window with a cup of espresso he hadn't touched. No entourage this time, no suit, just a man in dark clothes who made space seem smaller when he occupied it. He rose when they entered. "Miss Morales, Ms. Bennett," Clara nodded. "Mr. Valente, sit." He gestured, not commanding but making it sound like the safest choice. A server appeared instantly, nervous but efficient. 2 coffees arrived that neither woman remembered ordering. Valente studied Anna for a moment. "Your mother used to bring you to my house when you were small. You drew on my daughter's old notebooks." Anna's eyes widened. "You have a daughter?" "I did." The 2 words carried a weight that made her glance down. Clara changed the subject softly. "You didn't have to come all this way." "I did," he said simply. "Because the world she just met will eat her if it learns she's alone." "She isn't alone," Clara said. His gaze moved to her, steady but not unkind. Then keep it that way. For a few minutes they discussed practicalities. Tuition cleared, records restored, the promise of a scholarship fund in Carmen's name. Clara took notes. Anna listened, trying to understand how the man across from her could sound both dangerous and gentle. When it was done, Clara said quietly, "Why help us?" He looked out the window at the wet street. "Carmen once saved my family's life. She asked for nothing in return. When she called, I told her my debt remained open." Anna whispered, "She never told me that." "She wouldn't," he said. "She wanted you to earn your world without my shadow over it." Clara watched him carefully. "And yet here we are." He smiled faintly. "Shadows don't ask permission. They just fall." A silence followed, not awkward, more like the kind after thunder when everyone waits to see if the storm will return. Finally, Clara said, "Thank you, Mr. Valente, truly." He inclined his head. "You're brave. Most people fold in front of authority. You didn't." She met his eyes. "Neither did you." For the first time, something almost like amusement touched his face. "Then perhaps we're on the same side." Anna looked between them, sensing something she didn't have a word for. Respect, maybe. Or two people who had learned the same lesson differently, that protection came at a cost. Outside, the sky cleared. Valente walked them to the car waiting at the curb. Before they could thank him again, he said, "There will be talk. Ignore it. The world likes noise." Clara frowned. "Are we in danger?" "Not if they remember who paid the bills," he said lightly. But the words carried iron underneath. Anna clutched her bag. "Will I see you again?" He looked down at her, something flickering behind his composure. "I hope you won't need to." Then he closed the car door for them and stepped back, one hand lifting in brief farewell. The engine started. The cafe lights blurred in the window as they pulled away. Clara glanced at Anna. "You okay?" "I think so." She touched the folded note in her pocket. He felt like a storm that stops raining when you look at it. Clara smiled faintly. "Let's hope it stays stopped." They didn't notice Valente still standing by the curb, watching the car disappear down the street, his reflection merging with the fading daylight. He took out his phone, dialed once. "It's done. No one touches the Morales girl or her teacher. Ever." He listened to the reply, then said quietly, "Carmen kept her promise. Now I keep mine." He ended the call, slipped the phone into his pocket, and turned toward the waiting car. Behind him, the sun broke through the clouds and lit the wet pavement like glass. That evening, Clara couldn't sleep. The rain had returned, tapping softly against the window of her small apartment. She sat at her desk, grading papers, but her mind wasn't on the essays. Every time she tried to focus, her thoughts circled back to him, the man who had walked into the school like judgment wearing a black shirt. She replayed his words. "You humiliated a child over a balance that will be corrected by noon." The authority, the precision, the calm that came from a life used to command. It wasn't just fear that lingered. It was curiosity, and something harder to name. Across the city, Domenico Valente stood on the balcony of his penthouse, overlooking the Chicago River. The skyline shimmered with reflected light. The hum of traffic below was constant, like blood moving through steel veins. He poured a glass of wine, untouched, and glanced at the photo on his desk. Carmen Morales, smiling beside a younger him. A warehouse fire behind them, sirens blurred in the background. He remembered her pulling his daughter out of a burning car before the gas tank exploded. He remembered the hospital, the smell of antiseptic, and Carmen saying quietly, "You can't repay saving a child. Just live better because of it." She had disappeared soon after. He'd let her go. Now fate had brought her daughter to his doorstep, and with her, a teacher with eyes too steady for her own good. The next day at school, Clara noticed the shift immediately. Teachers were polite, overly so. Whitaker avoided her entirely. The board sent a memo announcing the creation of the Carmen Morales Scholarship Fund, with no mention of its mysterious donor. When Anna walked in that morning, head held a little higher, the classroom fell silent. Not mockery, but uncertainty. Power had changed direction overnight, and no one knew how. During lunch, a black sedan pulled into the faculty parking lot. The driver stepped out and handed Clara a white envelope sealed with wax. Inside, Ms. Bennett, please join me for coffee this evening at the Riverview Hotel. It concerns Anna's future. Ide Valente. Clara hesitated. Every instinct said don't go. But another voice, quieter, rational, stubborn, whispered that someone had to know what kind of man now had a child's life in his hands. The Riverview was all glass and gold light, its lobby filled with the quiet confidence of people who never worried about bills. Domenico was waiting at a corner table overlooking the water, a dark suit this time, tie loosened. Ms. Bennett. He stood as she approached. Thank you for coming. I'm still not sure I should have, she said, sliding into the chair across from him. He smiled faintly. Caution is smart. I rely on it myself. Then maybe we understand each other. The waiter arrived. Domenico ordered espresso. Clara, still wary, asked for tea. When the waiter left, he said, I wanted to speak without the noise of an audience. You protect that girl fiercely. She deserves to be protected. She does. He looked out over the city lights. Carmen was the same. She never backed down. Clara folded her hands. You said she saved your family's life. What did she save it from? He studied her. From me. The answer made her pulse jump. He continued, quiet but unflinching. I was younger, angry. Someone planted explosives in a warehouse I owned. Carmen worked security there. Single mother, 2 jobs, no backup. She ran inside when everyone else ran out, saved my daughter, dragged me out by the collar. She risked everything for strangers. That night changed how I handled power. She must have seen something worth saving, Clara said softly. He met her gaze. She saw something worth changing. They sat in silence for a moment. The air between them hummed with something not quite tension, not quite ease. Finally, she said, You built this an empire. Why still involve yourself in a schoolgirl's life? Because, he said, I don't want her to grow up thinking the world is owned by men like I used to be. That honesty caught her off guard. She realized she had come expecting a criminal, a manipulator. Instead, she found a man who carried his sins like scars he no longer hid. She looks up to you already, Clara said. Be careful with that. He smiled, small, genuine. Are you warning me? Yes. Then consider me warned. When she left the hotel, the rain had stopped. Domenico watched her go through the glass, a quiet unease rising in his chest. It had been years since anyone had spoken to him without fear. He turned to his aide. Keep eyes on the school, quietly. I don't want anyone near that girl. The aide hesitated. Including you? Domenico's jaw tightened. Especially me. Days passed. Anna's life began to look almost normal again. Classes, study sessions, late-night calls from her mother when the hospital shifts ended. Clara noticed the subtle changes. New shoes on Anna's feet, a repaired backpack, lunches that didn't come from the free bin. No explanation, but she knew. Domenico was keeping his promise. One Friday afternoon, a black car waited again outside the school gates. Anna froze at the sight. Clara touched her shoulder. It's okay. He's probably checking in. Domenico stepped out. No entourage this time. Just a man in an open coat, eyes tired. Ms. Bennett, he greeted. Miss Morales. Anna smiled timidly. Hi. Your mother asked me to deliver something. He handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a plane ticket and a letter. University of Milan. Scholarship confirmation. Anna looked up, stunned. Is this real? It's your mother's dream, he said. And mine. Clara stared at him. You arranged this? I opened a door. She'll have to walk through it herself. He turned to leave, but Clara called after him. You could have sent it by mail. He paused. I could have, but I wanted to see her smile once. Their eyes met, her cautious, his shadowed. And for the first time, she saw the humanity in the man everyone whispered about. Thank you, she said quietly. He inclined his head. Don't thank me, just make sure she gets there. Then he was gone again, the car fading into the traffic, leaving Clara and Anna standing in the late afternoon light, holding the future in their hands. That night, Clara couldn't shake the image of him, The man who could buy silence yet spoke like someone seeking forgiveness. She realized something dangerous. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. She was intrigued. And somewhere on the other side of the city, Domenico poured himself another untouched glass of wine and wondered when a teacher's voice had started haunting him more than his enemies did. The threat arrived on a Tuesday, disguised as normal. Clara was supervising dismissal when she noticed a man she didn't recognize leaning against the fence. Sunglasses in overcast weather, hands in pockets. He wasn't looking at the school. He was watching the crosswalk where students peeled off toward the bus stop. She filed the face away, the way teachers do with everything that doesn't fit. Anna came out last, clutching a stack of scholarship forms. "Ms. Bennett, can you—" She stopped when she saw Clara's gaze. "What's wrong?" "Stay with me," Clara said quietly. "Call your mom. Tell her I'll walk you to the train." They took the long way around the building. At the corner, Clara glanced back. The man was moving now, not fast, but always in their orbit. She shifted Anna to the inside of the sidewalk and stepped between her and the street. "Ms. Bennett," Anna whispered. "Is it him? Is it—" "No," Clara's voice stayed calm. "But he's looking for someone." At the train entrance, a second man appeared from the stairwell, the kind of casual that had been practiced in a mirror. Clara stopped walking. The two men didn't speak to each other. They didn't need to. The air changed. Clara reached for Anna's phone with a steady hand and hit the only number on the speed dial labeled with a single initial. A male voice answered on the first ring. "Yes." "This is Clara Bennett," she said. "We're at the Halstead station entrance. Two men, sunglasses, blue jacket, green cap. They're triangulating." "Stay where you are," he said. "Step into the florist behind you. Don't use the front door. Counter door to the alley. Dante is 2 minutes out." Clara blinked. She hadn't even noticed the florist. She tugged Anna's sleeve and they slipped inside. The shop was a riot of color and scent. An elderly woman behind the counter looked up, took in the fear in Anna's face, and nodded once as if she'd been waiting for her cue. "Back door, ladies. Family restroom after that." They made it into the narrow alley with their breath still in their chests. Dante's car turned in before the men rounded the corner. He was out of the driver's seat in one motion, ushering the girls in with a hand that never touched them. The doors locked. The car slid back into traffic like a fish cutting across current. Clara exhaled for the first time in a full minute. "Who were they?" "Not police," Dante said, eyes on the mirrors. "Not amateurs either." Anna's hands shook in her lap. "Why would anyone—" "Because you have value now," Dante said. "Some men try to steal what they can't build." The car stopped at a light. Dante hit a button. All the windows shaded. "He's 5 minutes behind us," he added, as if that solved everything. "It almost does," Clara murmured, and surprised herself by believing it. They pulled into an underground garage under a hotel Clara had never been able to afford. Domenico was already stepping out of an elevator when the doors opened, coat unbuttoned, tie absent, sleeves rolled. The anger on his face wasn't loud. It was cold. "Either of you hurt?" he asked, scanning for wounds the way a doctor would. "We're okay," Clara said. "Dante? Good," Domenico cut in. He turned to his lieutenant. "2 at Halstead. Clean pull?" 2 spotters. "We lost them at the alley," Dante said. "No plates." "No chatter yet." "Find it," Domenico said. "And tell Niccolo to sweep Whitaker's calls." Clara stiffened. "You think the principal?" "I think the principal is a small man who owes large men favors." Domenico's jaw worked once, a warning flare of temper. Then to Anna, "You did well." "I just followed Ms. Bennett," she said, and leaned into Clara like a tree leans into windbreak. "I know," he said softly. "Stay with her. I'll send you home with a car tonight." "We can take the train," Clara protested. "I do," he said. "I need to know you're safe." The guard at the elevator pretended not to listen to the intimacy in that need. Clara caught the echo of it too. Her pulse quickened and steadied at the same time. They rode up to a private floor with a view that made the river look tamed. In the suite's quiet, Domenico poured water and slid the glasses across the counter. "Sit," he said. When they did, he perched on the edge of a low table rather than taking the height of a chair. It was a small thing, but Clara noticed it. How he controlled a room without standing over anyone. Tell me exactly what you saw, he said. Clara described the first man at the fence, the second at the stairs, the way their bodies moved in relation to Anna instead of the building. Domenico asked 4 questions, each precise enough to draw a clearer sketch. When she finished, he looked at Dante. Not Caruso's boys. He's flashier. Could be new muscle, Dante replied. Or a contractor. Domenico's phone buzzed on the table. He read a message, exhaled once, then handed the screen to Clara. Whittaker, calls to Caruso Front Office, Charter Advancement Coalition, 2 unknown burners. Timestamps from the last 24 hours. Clara felt her face go hot. He put her in danger again. He tried, Domenico said. I won't let him succeed. You can't just... She gestured to the phone, to the unseen machinery humming around him. You can't turn a school board meeting into a battlefield. You think I already haven't? He asked mildly. There's a vote scheduled Friday. He'll resign. Quietly. With a pension. He doesn't deserve, but it keeps him quiet. And if he doesn't resign, I'll get loud. Clara met his gaze. No. A muscle ticked in his cheek, but he didn't look away. You have a better plan? Yes, she said, with the certainty teachers reserve for unruly classrooms and frightened children. We let him choose his exit. We show him the door and give him a reason to walk through it on his own legs. You want quiet? This is how. He tilted his head. You're advising me. I'm telling you what will keep Anna's name off every parent email thread in the city. That got him. Slowly he nodded. Draft the script. She blinked. The what? The statement he reads before he leaves. I'll make sure it's the only one that gets printed. Clara sat back. You're impossible. I am, he agreed, and the ghost of a smile touched his mouth. It's useful. Anna watched them ping-pong power without fear, her shoulders dropping notch by notch. Does this mean I can still go to Milan? She asked, voice small. Domenico turned to her, the edges of him softening the way night softens a skyline. It means you will, she swallowed. My mom says I can't leave unless you promise you'll watch over Ms. Bennett, too. Clara sputtered. Anna! Domenico didn't laugh. I already am. The words landed between them like a chord that could resolve 2 different ways. Clara felt something shift inside her, a weight sliding from caution to acknowledgement. He didn't mean it as flirtation. He meant it as a vow. Somehow that was worse, for her heart, and better, for everything else. Go finish your homework, Dante told Anna gently, nodding toward a study desk stocked with notebooks and pens. Let the adults argue. We're not arguing, Clara said. You will be, he said, and left them to it. They didn't argue. Not exactly. They negotiated. Over the next hour, they built a map together. Whittaker's resignation, the board's vote, a replacement candidate from within who had a spine, security on the school perimeter that looked like new cameras rather than men in coats. Every time Domenico chose the blunt path, Clara offered one with fewer casualties. Every time Clara underestimated the ugliness men were capable of, Domenico redrew the line thicker. At some point, the city moved from gold to blue beyond the windows. Anna fell asleep over a grammar worksheet, cheek on her arm. Clara covered her with a hotel throw. Domenico watched the gesture like a man watching something he hadn't believed he'd see again. You do this every day, he said. Stand between small people and big systems. It's my job. It's your calling. For the second time that day, she felt seen. What about you? She asked. What do you call what you do? Debt collection, he said dryly, then shrugged. Lately, maintenance, keeping things from falling on people who don't deserve them. Did you always think like that? No. He looked past her at the darkening river. Someone taught me. Carmen? She guessed. And grief, he said. It's a very firm teacher. Silence settled, this one gentle. Clara exhaled slowly. You should eat, she said. Your hands are shaking. They're not, he said, looked at them, and smiled when he caught the tremor he hadn't noticed. They ordered room service. He tried not to watch her eat. She tried not to notice the way he always gave up the last bite without making a show of it. When Anna woke, Dante drove them home with a car shadowing 3 blocks back. Domenico walked them to the lobby, stopping where the building rules asked him to stop. Tomorrow, he said to Clara, I'll have a draft of Whitaker's options. You'll make it sound civil. And you'll make it happen. That's the division of labor. She surprised them both by touching his sleeve. Thank you for listening. He looked down at her hand, then back up. Thank you for being someone worth listening to. For a second, the city got quiet. Not because it was, because something in her tilted toward him, and something in him leaned back to meet it. And in that small closeness, both of them remembered doorways at dusk and choices that changed lives. She pulled her hand back first. Good night, Mr. Valente. Domenico, he said. Good night. Domenico. He stood on the sidewalk until the elevator doors closed on her face. Only then did he let out the breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Upstairs, Clara pressed her back to her own closed door, palms cool against the wood, and laughed once, soft, disbelieving. She was in trouble, not the kind he could fix. The kind that grows where safety and admiration sit too close together. She turned off the lights, sat at the kitchen table, and began drafting the speech that would end a small man's reign without starting a war. Across the river, Domenico stood at his window with a cooling espresso and told himself the same truth he'd been repeating for days. He wasn't falling. He was simply standing nearer to the edge than he used to. The difference, he reminded himself, was everything. Friday came cold and sharp, the kind of day when every sound carried. The school's assembly hall was packed, students whispering, teachers lining the back wall, the local board members pretending calm. Principal Whitaker sat on stage, gray around the eyes, hands folded too neatly. Clara stood by the curtain with Anna, keeping her expression neutral even as her stomach knotted. The letter lay in Whitaker's lap. She had written it. He had agreed to read it. Domenico had ensured there was no second choice. At 10 sharp, the microphone crackled. Whitaker cleared his throat. Good morning. I have served Lakeview Preparatory for 15 years. Today I am announcing my resignation. Gasps rippled through the hall. He continued, voice wavering but steady enough. In recent days, I have realized that leadership requires humility and transparency. I failed to uphold those values. Effective immediately, I will be stepping down. I wish the school and its students every success. A silence followed, dense and uncertain, before the applause began. Uneven, then growing until it filled the room. Clara looked down at Anna. The girl was smiling in disbelief. It's over, Clara whispered. Anna nodded. He really did it. She didn't see the man standing at the back of the hall until he moved. Domenico in a dark overcoat, head bowed just enough to blend with the crowd. When their eyes met, he gave the smallest nod. You kept it clean. After the assembly, the city buzzed. By afternoon, local news had the story. A principal resigning amid financial discrepancies. A new scholarship fund launched for underprivileged students. No mention of who funded it. No mention of helicopters. Clara found Domenico waiting near the school gates. He didn't look like a criminal or a savior, just a man carrying too much thought. You came in person, she said. I wanted to see how it ends. Ends? She smiled faintly. I think this is the beginning. He studied her for a long moment. You believe in beginnings. I envy that. Maybe you should try it sometime. That made him laugh, low and genuine. Careful, Ms. Bennett. You're starting to sound like someone who's not afraid of me. I'm not. She met his gaze. I'm afraid for you. Something flickered behind his eyes, a surprise he didn't mask in time. Why? Because you keep standing between the world and everyone else. Sooner or later, something hits back. He looked away toward the street, where Anna was talking to friends by the gate, sunlight catching her hair. That's a risk I can live with. Clara folded her arms. And what about living with peace? I don't know what that looks like. You could learn. The words hung there, weightless and dangerous. He didn't answer. Instead, he nodded once. Dinner, tonight, no business, no debts. She hesitated. Is that an order? It's an invitation. The restaurant was nothing like the hotel suite. It was a small Italian place by the river, candles flickering, piano soft in the corner. He was already there when she arrived, sleeves rolled, jacket over the chair. I didn't think you'd come, he said. I didn't think you'd ask. They talked. Not about Whitaker or money or protection. About books, cities, the strangeness of growing up in neighborhoods where hope was rationed. He told her about his daughter, how she'd loved puzzles, how she'd been 6 when the fire took her. She'd be about Anna's age now, he said quietly. Clara reached across the table before she could stop herself, covered his hand with hers. You still see her in the things you save. He nodded once, eyes fixed on their joined hands. And what do you see in me, Ms. Bennett? Someone trying very hard to be good. That's dangerous work. So is teaching, she said. We do it anyway. For the first time, he smiled with warmth rather than control. You don't scare easily. I teach teenagers. That earned a laugh. He leaned back, the weight in him easing. You'd have liked Carmen. She talked like that. I think I already do, Clara said. The evening blurred after that. Coffee, stories. The quiet of 2 people discovering the silence between them was easy. When they stepped outside, the air was cold enough to bite. I'll have Dante take you home, Domenico said. I can take a cab. He hesitated, then reached into his coat. Then take this instead. He handed her a small phone, the kind with only one saved contact. If something ever feels wrong, he said, press 1. Is that your version of a good night? It's the best one I know. She slipped the phone into her purse. Good night, Domenico. He watched her go until the cab turned the corner. For once, he didn't feel like a man in control of a city. He felt like someone waiting for a tomorrow he hadn't planned. 2 weeks passed. Whitaker disappeared quietly into retirement. Anna received official confirmation of her Milan scholarship. The world moved on, except for Clara, who found herself catching glimpses of black cars near corners, of men with the same stillness as Domenico. She told herself it was coincidence. Then one evening she came home to find an envelope under her door. Inside was a single photograph, her leaving school, taken from across the street. No note. Her chest tightened. She pressed the number on the little phone. It rang once. Where are you? Domenico's voice, low, sharp, alive. At my apartment, she whispered. Someone was here. I'm on my way. Don't open the door. She could hear the background noise. Engine, orders, the click of a safety catch. Domenico, 5 minutes, he said. She locked the door, pulled the curtains, sat on the floor. The sound of the city through the walls was too thin to trust. Then headlights flashed across the window. Brakes hissed, and a knock. 3 quick, 1 slow. Clara, it's me. She opened the door. He stood there, hair damp from rain, a pistol holstered under his coat. He looked at the photo, jaw tightening. They're getting bolder. Who? Caruso's men. He's trying to draw me out. You were the easiest way. She felt the floor drop. You shouldn't be here. I told you I would be if you needed me. He crossed the room, shut the curtains himself. For a moment they were too close, his presence filling the space like heat. I don't want your world touching mine, she said. He looked down at her, the faintest ache in his voice. Too late. Outside, thunder rolled again, and the city remembered how to rain. The rain came hard and fast, pinning the city under a silver curtain. Domenico's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and moved with sudden purpose, checking the peephole, scanning corners with the efficient attention of a man who had outlived ambushes. Pack a small bag, he said. Nothing with your name on it. Shoes you can run in. Clara stared at him. Run to where? To somewhere I can control. I'm not, she began, then saw the tightness around his eyes, the restraint he wore like armor. Arguing would waste the one thing he valued most. Time. She moved. A sweater, jeans, a toothbrush. The small phone. When she turned back, he had the lights off and the door cracked half an inch, listening to the stairwell. Domenico, she whispered. Is Anna safe? Yes, he said. Dante moved her and Carmen to a hotel under another name. He lifted his chin toward the hall. We leave when I say. A minute stretched long. Thunder rolled again. Then a quiet tread on the landing muffled by the carpet. Too slow to be a neighbor, too soft to belong. Domenico's hand eased toward the holster. 3 knocks. Not his pattern. He shook his head once. They ghosted down the back stairs, his palm hovering at the center of her back, never pushing, always there. In the alley, rain splashed off the awning. A black sedan idled behind the dumpster, driver's door open. Dante stood in the wedge of light, umbrella useless against the downpour. 3 men across the street, he said as they slid into the back. 2 more at the corner. His eyes flicked to Clara, the apology of a professional who hated involving civilians. We'll take the river. They moved. The car merged onto Lower Wacker, concrete walls slick with rain, reflections of taillights running like blood. Clara watched the city flicker past in torn pieces, feeling unmoored and more present than she had in years. Beneath the fear, a strange calm spread. She was not alone. She was not pretending to be brave in an office with a broken lock. She was beside someone who did not lie about danger. Who put the photo under my door? She asked. Caruso's runner, Dante said. Same hand that staked out Anna. Why not go to the police? She said, hearing the hollowness even as she spoke. They don't catch men like him, Domenico replied. They shake his hand and call it jurisdictional. The car surfaced near the river, crossed 2 bridges, and turned down a private ramp into an underground garage. A steel door rolled up. Dante pulled into a slot. Elevator doors waited, already open. No lobby, no witnesses. Where are we? Clara asked. Somewhere that belongs to a friend, Domenico said. Does everything belong to your friends? Or their cousins, he said dryly, and she almost smiled despite the adrenaline. The elevator opened into a space that was all shadow and soft lamps, a penthouse by the river with windows like picture frames and floors that swallowed sound. Not his usual suite, she guessed. A safe place he kept off the books. Shoes by the door, he said out of habit, then caught himself and half shrugged, almost embarrassed by the domesticity. You can keep yours on. I'll check the perimeter. She towed them off anyway. The small gesture grounded her. He moved through the rooms with the soundless tread she was coming to recognize, checked the balcony lock, the service exit, the hall camera feed Dante had patched to his phone. Only then did he set the pistol on the counter, magazine separate, and roll his sleeves. The ritual of disarming. You're shaking, he said. So are you, she answered. He glanced down, saw the tremor he could ignore in a firefight but not here, and huffed a laugh that wasn't amused. Sit, he said gently. I'll make tea. You? She said, lifting a brow. I can boil water, sometimes without burning it. The kettle found the flame. The city ran silver-black beyond the glass. Clara watched him move through his own shadows, a man built from hard choices carefully picking up something soft. When he set the mug in front of her, her hands brushed his. Warmth, human and immediate, moved through her like relief. This isn't sustainable, she said, guarding every door. I know, he said. You keep saying that like it doesn't have to change. It's already changing, he said quietly. She looked at him. How? He was silent long enough she heard the rain again. Then, before Carmen, I believed power was possession. After, I learned it was responsibility. Since you, he stopped, searching for a word that didn't exist in the vocabulary he usually employed. Since you, I keep wondering what it would feel like to stop building walls and start fixing windows. It was a strange, beautiful image, and it rattled her more than any threat. Domenico, she said, too softly to be a warning. You can't change for me. I'm not, he said. I'm changing in front of you. They looked at each other, the space between them full of everything they'd not said. The kettle hissed. Somewhere below, a horn blared and faded. He reached out as if to touch her cheek, then stopped with a control that felt like reverence. Tell me if this frightens you, he said, voice low, steady. What? She asked, matching his quiet. The way I feel when you walk into a room, he said. Like the city gets quieter, like I owe fewer debts than I thought. Her breath caught. He had not said love. He had said something older, something that had nothing to do with ownership and everything to do with witnessing. It doesn't frighten me, she said. It makes me honest. How? I don't want to be a cause you take up. I don't want to be the proof you can be good. She swallowed. I want to be the life you choose even when nobody's watching. His eyes closed once, brief and shaken. Clara. She didn't know which of them moved first. His hand found her jaw, her fingers found the collar of his shirt, and their mouths met. Nothing fevered, no desperate clutch, just a long, unguarded kiss that tasted of rain and relief. He kept one palm open at the small of her back, as though testing the idea of holding something without breaking it. When they drew apart, her forehead rested against his. "Tell me to stop," he said, not because he wanted to, but because consent had become a language he was learning to speak. "Don't," she whispered. "Just be here." They breathed. The rain softened. Somewhere in the building, a pipe ticked and cooled. Dante's text chimed on the counter. Caruso moving. Rumor. Teacher, leaver. Then a second. Would take her contact. Confirmed payment. Paper trail. Clara pulled back, eyes clearing. "He paid Whitaker to expel Anna?" Domenico's mouth hardened. "It appears so." "You can nail him with this," she said. "You don't need a war, you need daylight." "Daylight burns men like him," he said. "Then open the blinds," she replied. "You have a friend at the Tribune. I have 3. His gaze warmed despite the threat. "Of course you do." They set to work. He forwarded the ledger images. She wrote the narrative with the efficiency of a woman who knew how to align facts so they couldn't be misread. A child expelled unlawfully. A principal bought. A rival's check cut through a front that had laundered favors for a decade. No melodrama. Just sequence and consequence. Dante patched a call to a reporter who owed Clara a favor and Domenico a debt. "Anonymous sources," the man warned. "You sure?" "Cross-reference the timestamps with the board's public calendar," Clara said. "And ask yourself why a charter coalition needs a cash courier at midnight." The reporter whistled softly. "Copy that." They hit send. The room hummed, a different kind of electricity now, the hum of risk becoming action. "Caruso won't like this," Dante said, flipping a knife open and closed with the mindless grace of a man who thought better with his hands. "He doesn't have to," Domenico said. "He just has to learn he's not the only one who decides what happens here." Clara touched his sleeve again, a habit now, grounding him and herself. "You just chose daylight over bullets," she said. "That's not nothing." He looked down at her hand, then up. "That's you." The night stretched. Around 3 a.m., the article went live. By 3:15, it had 5,000 shares. By dawn, a local news van idled near Caruso's office, and City Hall's communications director was drafting a statement about integrity in education. The current carried away what would never return quite the same. Clara slept an hour on the couch, her head against his shoulder. He didn't move, didn't dare. He watched the gray ease to blue beyond the windows and, for once, let himself feel the simple animal joy of a woman breathing safely beside him. She stirred at 7, blinking at the light. "Did we win?" "We started," he said. He walked her to the bathroom, set a toothbrush on the sink as if it were always supposed to be there, and caught his own reflection. Sleeves pushed up, tie lost, eyes softer. A man he wouldn't have recognized a year ago looked back, not ashamed. When she came out, hair damp and face clean, Dante stepped in from the hall, grim. 2 cars outside. Not press. Caruso's boys. They're done asking nice. Clara's spine straightened. "What do we do?" Domenico's hand found hers. "Not to pull, to link." "We end it," he said. She squeezed once. "Daylight," he nodded. "Daylight." He turned to Dante. "Call Niccolo. Cameras on the curb. Police on the way. No guns unless they pull first." Dante lifted a brow. "You want cops?" "I want witnesses," Domenico said. "And I want Caruso choosing whether he looks into a lens and lies." They took the elevator down together. As the doors opened to the private lobby, rain smell drifted in from the river. Beyond the glass, 2 sedans idled. 3 men leaned against them like punctuation marks waiting for a sentence. Domenico stepped forward, Clara at his side. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You boys lost?" he asked. One smirked. "Boss wants a word." "He can read," Domenico said, jerking his chin toward the news van turning the corner. "Page 1. Another man's gaze flickered, just for a second. The look of someone who'd just realized the room he thought he'd entered had different walls. Sirens swelled 2 blocks away. Cameras glinted. Clara slid her hand up his forearm. An anchor. He glanced at her and astonishingly smiled. "Go home," he told the men, low and final. "School's in session." The first sedan's driver killed the engine. then restarted it like a man choosing not to make history. The cars pulled away into the thinning rain. Police cruisers slid in a minute later, late to a party already ending. One officer eyed Domenico with the weary understanding of a city that knew who kept certain kinds of peace. Dante blew out a breath. "Daylight," he said. "Daylight," Domenico echoed, then turned to Clara. "Breakfast?" She laughed, shaky with relief. "Is this your version of a victory parade?" "Pancakes," he said solemnly. "With too much syrup." "You're learning," she said, and the look they shared tasted sweeter than anything on a plate. He led her back inside, shoulder brushing hers. The storm had broken. For the first time since he'd walked into a school and demanded an apology, Domenico understood that protection didn't have to mean darkness. It could mean light you chose to stand in and refuse to move from. He looked at Clara. Her steady eyes, her unshakable spine, the way she reached for his hand without fanfare, and let the truth settle fully. His world had shifted on its axis. Not because he had forced it, but because she had asked him to. "Clara," he said softly, a confession laid bare in the name. She looked up. "Yes? I don't know how to be a good man," he said, "but I know how to be yours." Her answer was simple, and all he needed. Start there. A month later, Chicago finally remembered spring. The air was soft again, the trees along the river almost green. On the terrace of a quiet downtown cafe, Clara sat with a folder of departure documents open in front of her and a single suitcase at her feet. Across from her, Ana Morales was trying to smile through the shimmer of tears in her eyes. "Are you sure you packed everything?" Clara asked. Anna nodded. "Even the sketchbook you gave me. I'll start a new one when I get there." "Good. That's what Milan is for. New pages." They hugged hard. Carmen waited by the car, pride and worry written across her face. The flight would board in 2 hours. The scholarship was real, official, and already in the papers. Local student wins full scholarship to University of Milan. No mention of the man who had built the fund. Just as he'd promised. As they pulled away, Clara watched the tail lights disappear into the morning haze. A voice behind her said, "You look like a woman who just let go of something precious." She didn't turn immediately. "She deserved the world," she said. "And now she has a chance to see it." Domenico stepped closer. His coat was off, sleeves rolled. He looked lighter, as if the winter had finally released him too. "And you?" he asked. "What do you deserve?" She smiled, faint but real. "A quiet day, a cup of coffee that stays warm, maybe peace." He studied her for a moment, then sat opposite. "Peace isn't quiet," he said. "It's noisy, but the noise doesn't scare you anymore." "Is that what you found?" He looked toward the river. "I'm trying. Caruso is gone. The papers did their work. He left the city the same way I did years ago, without a sound." "And you?" "I'm staying." She lifted a brow. "In daylight?" He smiled, small and self-mocking. "Mostly." They walked after coffee, down along the water where vendors were setting up stalls. He spoke of projects, a community hall, a youth foundation that would bear Carmen's name, a restaurant reopening without private guards. Clara listened, half amused, half proud. "You sound like a man campaigning for something," she said. "Redemption doesn't have a ballot," he said. "But it has deadlines." When they reached the bridge, he stopped. "Come with me," he said suddenly. "Where?" He pointed upward. A construction elevator clung to the side of a half-finished building, the top floor open to sky. 5 minutes, he said. "You trust me?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Against my better judgment." They rode up slowly, the city shrinking below them, wind lifting her hair. At the top, a steel deck spread like a stage. Workers had gone for the day. Beyond them, the skyline glowed gold in late light. He stood by the edge, hands in pockets, watching the water curve through the city. "When I was a kid," he said, "my father brought me here before it was built. He said the city only respects you if you can look down at it. I thought he meant power. He meant perspective. And now I think the view's better when you're not alone." She moved beside him, wind tugging at her sleeve. "You called me here to share a view." "Yes, and something else." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded paper. Inside was a photograph. Her, Anna, and Carmen standing on the school steps the day of the scholarship ceremony. Someone had printed it from a news site. At the bottom, he'd written a single line. No more debts. "You kept a picture of us?" she said. "I keep reminders of what's real." She studied him, the lines around his eyes softer now. The weight he carried changed shape. "And what's next for you, Mr. Valente?" He turned the photograph over, blank side up. "Maybe I start building things that stay. Like schools?" "Like peace," he said. "Maybe like us, if you want that." Her pulse fluttered. "You sure you know what that means?" "No," he said. "That's why I need a teacher." She laughed then, quiet and genuine, and he joined her. The wind swept their voices out over the city. They stayed there as the sun dropped behind the skyline. Below them, the river caught the last light, a long golden ribbon winding toward the lake. He reached for her hand, not with the claiming grip of a man used to owning, but with the careful touch of someone relearning gentleness. She let him. For a long time, neither spoke. The city hummed, alive, imperfect, forgiven. When at last they turned to leave, a helicopter passed far above, heading north, its rotors thumping softly through the fading light. He looked up, smiled faintly. "Funny," he said. "Once I thought that sound meant control. Now it just sounds like noise." She squeezed his hand. "Then let's walk. Leave the noise to the sky." They took the elevator down together. On the ground, streetlights flickered on, one by one. A group of kids in uniforms crossed the corner, laughing. Clara glanced at them, then at him. "Think they know who you are?" she asked. He shook his head. "They don't need to. They just need to know someone's watching the doors, not guarding them." "And the rest?" He smiled. "The rest, I leave to daylight." Later, on the roof of his restaurant, the one rebuilt, renamed Villa Carmen, they watched candles flicker on every table. Guests arrived not for fear or power, but for music and food. He served the first glass of wine himself. Clara stood at his side. "You did it," she whispered. "You found your peace." He turned to her. "No," he said. "I found my reason." She rose on her toes, kissed him once softly. "Then keep it." Below them, the city that had once feared his name glowed with ordinary life. And for the first time, the man who had ruled its shadows stood in the open and didn't flinch. Months later, in a gallery on Michigan Avenue, a painting hung in the front window. Two figures on a rooftop, the city beneath them, dawn breaking behind. The placard read simply, "Villa Carmen, Morning." The artist's note beneath it said, "Dedicated to everyone who learns that protection and love can be the same thing." And in a small apartment across town, a woman turned off the light, heard the faint echo of helicopter blades far away, and smiled, not in fear, but in memory. Because sometimes the sound that once meant danger is just another way the sky reminds you that you're finally free.